Hey, what's good, guys? It's your boy B Mahari here, represent MehariNation Sports Podcast. Salute to the entire LDBC. Um, I just wanted to touch upon this story that came out here today. Uh, if you guys already know by now, for those of you who don't know, um, Hall of Fame wide receiver Cris Carter is officially out from Fox Sports. He was recently suspended because he got into an argument with the executive bosses about a role that he wanted to be on for Thursday Night Football, and he'd not been on the First Things First show with Nick Wright since October 30th, and but now it's announced today that he was removed from the show. Now, I've heard a lot of the responses from Ticket TV, Two World for TV, about the whole situation with Cris Carter. Now, growing up in Minnesota, I know I've seen Cris Carter, and doing his engagement speaks, but I also watched Cris Carter in his heyday in Minnesota, around 97 through 2000. So I wasn't around, I was too young to watch Cris Carter when, obviously, when he was in Philadelphia and the early stages when he was in Minnesota. But I'll put it like this. Cris Carter is, when you look at his career from from the first game on to his last game of his career when he was in Miami, he was one of the greatest wide receivers in the game. Okay, and he is a very talented player, and he was an inspiration for a lot of people. But the thing that really could have killed his career was obviously the alcohol issues. And Buddy Ryan, who used to coach the Philadelphia Eagles, did him probably one of the biggest favors he could ask for throughout his career when he released him after his third season with Philadelphia. And the thing is, it's like he got released. He knew that his career was going to be on life support, so he admitted to himself that he had an alcohol problem, went into rehab, and got himself cleaned up, and became an inspiring athlete. And when he was in his heyday in Minnesota, I remembered all the times where, you know, him and Randy Moss toured the Metronome. I mean, every Sunday it was like a rock concert there. You know what I mean? Especially that '98 season. It was one of the greatest seasons in Vikings history. That we had the best potent offense in the NFL. We set the record for scoring until the 2007 Patriots broke that record. And you had a young and primed Randy Moss and a primed Cris Carter on both sides of the ball, and a rejuvenated Randall Cunningham. And it was an unbelievable season. But I think that what really has happened with Cris Carter, because he used to work for at the NFL Network, he worked for ESPN for a short period of time, and then he worked in Fox Sports. See, the thing that really alarmed me when it came to Cris Carter. Hey, Jay West, how you doing? Absolutely, Jake Reed. Oh yeah, I remember Jake Reed too. But let me stay focused. Okay. The thing that really caught my attention when it came to Cris Carter was that he has a very high ego of himself, and a lot of times he he sometimes views a lot of the analysts who dedicate themselves to studying the game, and he sometimes believes that he knows so much about the game of football that he can basically talk over a lot of people, and sometimes he can be very very confrontational when he tries to get into a debate with anybody. Now, I rarely watch the First Things First show because it's one of those shows I don't really care about. But the thing is that in the few times I would watch the episodes of First Things First, because I wanted to see how that show really flowed, Cris Carter can sometimes be, very shrewd, can be very, very, loud and disrespectful on the way he approaches things and the way he debates against Nick Wright. And, you know, the same thing was going on with ESPN too. Because remember, because he also had a heated debate with Skip Bayless on First Take with Stephen A. Smith at the time. And the thing what really alarmed me about with Cris Carter was that, he always believed that he's above everybody. Especially if you read a lot of the stuff from the Star Tribune, from a lot of the reporters who used to cover those teams when he was in his prime, they will all tell you that, Cris Carter ego was unbelievably high, and he always tried to keep everybody accountable, but sometimes goes at it the wrong way. Now, if you watch the Football Life documentary, um, you would know that he would always be critical of any person on the team, the coaching staff, on the sidelines. Y'all know this, but in the locker rooms is where everything goes down, because he would be very, very verbally abusive to a lot of his teammates, and there were times where he would be very, very. It would be very, very heated, and the one thing that I kind of respect about Cris Carter was that he overcame a lot in his life, and changed his entire outlook in life and became a Hall of Famer. But if you notice about his Twitter page, you notice that he always likes to put biblical quotes on his Twitter feed. Okay, he always likes to quote the Bible a lot. And the thing that I had an issue with Cris Carter was that a lot of times, because you're a great player, sometimes you believe that you have experienced everything in your sport. You tend to believe that everything you say is always right. That I know more than you. Like, I can talk over you anytime I want because everything you say is wrong. But sometimes you got to let people speak their point of view and then counter back. See, when I always debate about basketball, I always let the person talk first because I want to see what their response is. Then it's when it's my turn, I expect the person to give me the same opportunity and the same chance to speak my point without talking over me. Because if you try to talk over me, I'm just not going to talk to you anymore. That's it. All right. I don't like. Listen, it's about respect when it comes to debating. You can have your point of view, but if you try to talk over me, you know, I'm not gonna continue this debate with you because you're not giving me that kind of respect. And Cris Carter a lot of times come across as could be could be very arrogant, and he can be very abrasive, just like what Ancestral Rage just said on the in the chat. And honestly, though, bro, there's probably a good reason why he was bounced out of so many networks after his playing days were over. It's probably a lot has to do with why he was out of the Hall of Fame for a long period of time until 2013 when he finally got inducted in. But also he always says a lot of outlandish things, specifically when it came to Terrell Owens too, about how T.O. should not be in the Hall of Fame as a first ballot or anything like that, because it felt like because he felt like that T.O. didn't do enough in his career. And I said it during when I was watching him debate, and I'm gonna say it here. Terrell Owens, regardless of what people think of him, outside of football, T.O. played at a high level that can never be matched. And if you ask me, who would I take between Randy Moss and Terrell Owens? I would take T.O. over Randy Moss because T.O. motor is always on and always ready to play. When it came to Randy Moss, sometimes his engine turns on and off. Sometimes you don't know when Randy Moss's engine was going to be lit up. And I think Cris Carter really took offense to that. And I think that this is one of the reasons why him and T.O. never really saw eye to eye with each other. You know what I mean? And especially after when T.O. was in the hall, when finally made it to the Hall of Fame on his third attempt, there was some slight resentment against by Cris Carter. You know, and then when T.O. decided he was going to decide not to join the Hall of Fame induction ceremony and have his own ceremony. You know what first thing Cris Carter did? He basically celebrated on his Twitter feed. And it really kind of just rubbed me off the wrong way of how Cris Carter perceived himself. And I'll tell you another little story, though, too. I personally met Cris Carter back in 1997 when he was in my preschool. They was doing some anti-drug program there, because they wanted to teach little kids about not to use drugs or anything like that. And I walked up to Cris Carter, and I remembered, him being very gentle, very candid in spirit. But the thing that I kind of remember as a kid was that he sometimes believed that everything that he said was always golden. That he always believed that the things that he said a lot of times was always going to be, you know, it's the gospel. I'm always right and everybody else is wrong. And as a grown up now, I think that it's fine to have your point of view, but you got to understand people's side of things. You know what I mean? And I really felt that, Chris Carter, you know, is sometimes his ego gets in the way of his intellect because he's a very smart man, but sometimes his ego drives him into into areas where it doesn't really make any sense. And about what happened with the argument he had with the Fox Sports executives, we don't know what was said in those meetings. Now, it's being reported that he got into an argument because he wanted a role on and wanted to be a part of Thursday Night Football. But according to a lot of the other sources that are starting to come out, there may have been much more to the argument than it was being reported, but it's not being put out there at this particular point in time. Now, we just have to wait and see, you know, what happens from here on in. If Chris Carter is going to be willing to speak about this, or if Fox Sports is going to put out some sort of statement about what really happened. We don't know what really happened in those meetings, so I'm not going to, speculate anything. But I think a lot of it has to do with ego because, Chris Carter wanted to be a part of primetime. He wants to, be part of Thursday Night Football. It's prime time. He's got to work in the mornings, on this show with Nick Wright. And I don't believe a lot of the stuff that they say on the debate shows because I always have very bad disdain for debate shows because they always take it to the places where it's just too dark and it's just too, controversial to where, you become exposed to what you really are and what your true colors are. And so I think to me, I think Chris Carter's ego got him into hot water, and he paid the price for it. And we'll see what happens. What will happen from here on in. What will the reports come out about what they said, and what was the big course of the argument besides the Thursday night football angle. But we just have to wait and see. I see a lot of you guys in the chat. Ancestral Ways, Jay West, King Louis 2 Boxing. Y'all go to subscribe to King Louis 2 Boxing too. Yep. Ancestral Ray says his delivery was abrasive. He always talked over Nick Wright and lows at him. Yeah, I noticed that too. I noticed that, that Chris Carter a lot of times always talks over Nick Wright and always always belittles Nick Wright a lot of times. Even though deservedly, because sometimes Nick Wright says a lot of dumb stuff that deserves to be ripped for it. And I love it when Ticket TV always calls him Nick wrong. You know what I mean? Because a lot of times he's always been wrong about a lot of stuff about when it comes to the NBA. You know what I mean? But I always felt that to me, Chris Carter needs to find a way to keep his ego in check. Just because you have that point of view doesn't mean you got to come off across as just an arrogant, asshole to everybody. And it's very disappointing about what is Chris Carter's outlook of his post career has been looking like now, because he's becoming much more of a preacher than a role model. And I really really hate to see what he's turning himself into, and it's not looking good for him. I don't know where he'll go from here. I'm sure he's going to be just fine. You know, obviously because he's probably saving up enough money, so he's just going to be fine. But I don't know what network is going to accept him now, because that's three strikes. He tried ESPN, the NFL Network, and Fox Sports, and now he basically struck out three times. So hopefully that he'll find another place to work, because I don't like to see people lose their jobs. But the thing about that is that, and I'm gonna make this last point too before I get out of here. Everybody wants to lash out at their bosses a lot of times. I know I do in my workplace. But this is not like WWE where you could basically assault your boss without any consequence. That's not how it really works. Okay. Growing up, Stone Cold Steve Austin and Vince McMahon was the greatest rivalry in the WWE. You know what I mean? And truthfully, the thing is that you can't always, lash out at your bosses all the time, because the thing is, because you're gonna either you're gonna lose your job or you're gonna get arrested. You know what I mean? You can't come across as a disruptive force towards your bosses. Now, you could find a way to interchannel your frustrations in a more productive way where you do it productively without getting yourself into trouble. But you can't just but you can't go out there and just put some word about anybody, because if you do that, if you decide to do that, you know what though, bro? You're gonna be looked at as a violent man. And in this society though, bro, we have to be careful about the things we say a lot of times, even when you're out there working. I don't care if it's like the worst job you ever had. You know what I mean? There are times where I really wanted to put my hands on my boss too, but I can't do that because I know the consequences of my actions if I decided to go that route. I can't be verbally abusive to all the people around me. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, though, bro, Cris Carter, you know, needs to understand the consequences of his actions, and he really needs to keep his ego in check, because once he gets another opportunity at a network, if he does, he's gonna be under a microscope, because everybody's gonna know about what his reputation is, and more importantly, what more importantly to that is that they're gonna know how is he gonna handle the daily days of the job, and that's what's gonna come down to when if he gets another opportunity. So I just wanted to give my 2 cents in the situation. Hopefully, there's more of this story that's gonna come out, and hopefully they'll probably change my perspective of what I see it. But that's just my opinion on the matter, though, too. So I hope y'all guys have a great day. I'll be back here at 9 p.m. Central Time for Uncut Talk. We're gonna discuss about Canelo Alvarez and why he is not respected by many in the boxing community, but also by Mexican boxing legends. So this is Abil Mehari representing MehariNation Sports Podcast. Salute to the Italian LDBC, and we out.